Good afternoon, everybody. Hang tight. We're just going to give it another minute or so to let stragglers join. Well, Michelle, apparently your messaging worked because we're at almost 50 people who figured out how to get in.
Excellent.
Yeah. Okay. Well, given that it is 3:03, I think we can get going and just out of respect for everyone's time, so we can cover all the material that we are going to cover. And just to confirm, Michelle, you can see the you can see the slide.
Yep, you're good to go.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for calling in. My name is Evan Pilling, and I am the grants coordinator for the New Mexico Outdoor Recreation Division. And today we're going to talk about the Outdoor Equity Fund. If you are not interested in learning about the Outdoor Equity Fund, you're not in the right place. So hopefully everybody is interested in talking about grant funds and getting kids outside. So just to start off, there we go. So the Outdoor Recreation Division is a part of the New Mexico Economic Development Department. Um, and this is our team. Karina Armijo is our director. Carl Colonius is the program manager, and he also manages the Trails Plus program. We will talk about that a little later. Michelle Simon, who is also on this webinar and helping MC, is our marketing coordinator. And I am the grants coordinator, and I've been with ORD for, I believe this is week 6. So, and this is actually my first time doing a run through of this webinar. So if I stumble a little bit, please don't judge me too harshly, but I think it's going to go well. The outdoor recreation, the ORD Outdoor Recreation Division increases equitable access to the outdoors for all New Mexicans, ensuring healthy outcomes, environmental stewardship, and economic prosperity. Some of our core values are focusing on sustainable economic development, equity and access, conservation and stewardship, education, and health and well-being. The Outdoor Equity Fund was created in 2019, and it was the first of its kind grant to help underserved youth get outside for educational experiences. To date, we have awarded $6.5 million for a total of 285 awards, with a total of more than 83,000 New Mexico youth served. So that's a pretty impressive impact that I'm excited to be a part of. Where is And as a sidebar, Michelle, I'm realizing that I don't think the notes I had entered transferred over to this, so we're just going to wing it. Um, Again, apologies everyone while we work out some of the kinks. Just a couple of housekeeping items. Number one, you guys will probably notice that you are all muted, or you should be muted. We do have a Q&A. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the Teams webinar function, if you go up to the bar at the top of your screen, you'll notice that there's a button that you can click for Q&A. Any questions that you have, we're going to ask that you drop those in the Q&A, and then once we go through the entire presentation, we'll go ahead and answer any of those that we can with the amount of time that we have. We ask that you try to keep your questions more generally focused, so that we can try to answer questions that are the most relevant to everyone participating. If you have specific questions, at the end of the presentation, we'll have a slide that shows you how you can sign up for a one-on-one session with me via Teams, and that'll be a either 15-minute or 30-minute slot, so we can try to make sure that all of your questions are answered. So for fiscal year 26, we do have a couple of updates. First off, for those of you who have either been past applicants or past awardees, in past years, we referred to, or we used calendar year to refer to the grants. And just to make sure everything is consistent across all of our grant programs moving forward, we're going to be using the fiscal year system. So this grant cycle that is open now is the start of the fiscal year 2026 grant cycle. Um, and some updates for this year. We have a total of $3 million available for fiscal year 2026. That's going to be broken up into two application rounds. Currently, round one is open, and round one runs from June 1st to July 31st of this year. And then round two the application period is gonna run from January 1st to January 31st of 2026. And can we mute whoever is unmuted there? I think I might have gotten it. Um, so one thing that you'll notice is in past years and for this current round, the application period was 2 months. So it's June 1st to July 31st. Starting in January of 2026 and moving forward, it's going to be a 1 month application period. And we'll make sure that everyone is very well notified about that. Another update that's maybe new for past grantees is we will be using the submittable grant portal for all grant related communication. So when you go and you apply, you'll create a submittable profile for all communication back and forth between ORD and grantees. You'll be using submittable. You'll be doing a reporting through there. And so it's a relatively easy to use platform, but we are going to be using submittable.
Okay.
So a brief overview of what the application looks like. For those of you who have not been, you can find everything that we're looking at on the Outdoor Equity Fund website. And that is, why am I drawing a blank on this? Outdoornm.com. And so you can see when you go
I'll drop that
the
link into the chat for everybody, guys.
Yes, thank you. And there will be links dropped in the chat as well. But if you go onto the ORD website and you go to the grant section, you can see the Outdoor Equity Fund page. Up at the top right, you've got the button that you go to that'll take you to submittable. And then you will also be able to access the grant guide that we're going to be showing you in a couple of slides. For anyone who is planning on applying, even if you are a past applicant, we would strongly encourage you to take a good deep look at that grant guide to make sure that you're up to date on all of the application requirements, all the reporting requirements. A lot of questions that you might have would be answered there. And for those of you who choose to sign up for a one-on-one call with me, I would also ask that you take some time to review the grant guide before that call, just to make sure that we're all on the same page.
I'm having urges to really assess with you, one, what you need, and two, what's going on with the client. I am.
And Michelle, yeah, let's just make sure that all the attendees are muted. So the other thing that you'll find that we don't have updated on here is there is a link to the one-on-one sign-up page, and that's on the Outdoor Equity Fund page as well. A new feature that's pretty cool that Michelle added this year is the grant recipient map. So you can see by which grant, by what year, you can see how ORD grant funds are being spent statewide. You can see from this map that we have a pretty wide distribution, a lot of different counties, a lot of different towns. And so that's a cool feature that you can check out. So looking at the grant guide, we reviewed some of this information here, but just to reiterate, we've got 3 million available for fiscal year 26, available in 2 rounds, and we've had a couple of questions. It will be 1.5 million for each round, and so there is no bias towards one round or the other. So if you're contemplating waiting until round 2 because that works better for your program, don't feel like you're going to somehow get shorted if you don't jump on round 1. This is directly from the grant guide, so you can check this out at your leisure. So for the Outdoor Equity Fund, eligible applicants are tribes, pueblos and nations, any tribal entities, municipalities, counties, nonprofits who have a current 501c3 status, K through 12 schools and school districts, colleges and universities. Of note is that for-profit entities, LLCs, any sort of businesses are not eligible to apply for Outdoor Equity Fund grants. And so if you are on the business side of things and you're interested in accessing these funds, you would need to partner with a governmental or a nonprofit or tribal partner to be able to apply. By statute, the all grant funds must serve a population where at least 40% of participants are low-income youth up to age 18, and we'll go a little more in depth in that in a minute. And the other part of the statute is that all programming must include some educational component that focuses on climate and the environment. And so, we want to make sure that our participants are receiving some education about climate and the environment. Talked about the grant dates and the deadlines. Grant awards can range from $5,000 to $40,000, and those funds are paid upfront at the start of the grant period. That's actually a unique thing to the Outdoor Equity Fund grants. They're not reimbursement grants, and so we try to make it accessible to especially the smaller grantees who may not have the funds available. So we do pay up front. There is a match requirement. It's a 2-to-1 match. That means that if you receive $20,000 of grant funding, you have to come up with $10,000 in matching funds. That can be a cash or an in-kind match. So cash can be cash spent on associated program expenses. In kind could include donated services, volunteer hours. And if you have any more questions about that, we can talk about that in a one-on-one call. We do have a match waiver available, and so if you are a member of a tribal community, if you are a rural community, and rural is defined as any part of the state other than Los Alamos County, Albuquerque, Rio Rancho, Farmington, Las Cruces, Roswell, Santa Fe, and a 10-mile radius of those cities, you would qualify as rural. So you would qualify for a match waiver there. If you can provide a match, it's still encouraged. Even if you qualify for a match waiver, providing some match will strengthen your grant application. And so please consider, even if you do qualify for a waiver, go ahead and bring some match to the table. And we are willing to consider match waivers on a case-by-case basis. And so if you feel that there's a high need for grant funding and your organization doesn't qualify for a waiver but is unable to meet that match requirement, you can email me and we can talk about it. My email will be on the last slide of the presentation. And of course, Michelle, if you see me missing anything, please let me know. But contract and recording requirements. All grant-funded programs must be completed within 18 months of the signed contract date. And that's not when you submit your application. It's not when you get notification about whether or not your project was funded. It is when you have a signed and executed grant agreement from the Outdoor Recreation Division. That is when the 18-month clock starts ticking. You don't have to take 18 months. Our funded programs span a very wide range, from summer programs to a one-time very large field trip to maybe more periodic programming that does span the whole 18 months. But it's 18 months from the signed and executed grant agreement contract date. Like I said, grant funds will be paid up front after the agreement is signed. Awardees must submit a progress report at the midpoint of your grant funded program. One of the things that we've added in this year's application is we ask you when you anticipate your program being completed, and so we're working on processes to make sure that you get that progress report request at the actual midpoint of your program, as opposed to at 9 months when some programs may be complete. So we're hoping that we can get better participation in our progress reporting and get better data. Also, we encourage you to keep in touch if you have questions, if you think there's something going really well that you want to share. Please reach out. We love to hear about our grantees, and we love getting updates about what's going on in the field. Um, at ORD's request, you will also be expected to participate in either an in-person site visit or an update phone call. That's not automatic. We wish we had the capacity to get hands-on with every one of our grantees. We're not quite there yet, but we at our request, we do expect the grantees participate in either a site visit or a phone call. Um, we also ask that you submit photos and videos that you may take and to participate in any marketing and promotional efforts that we have, including tagging ORD in any of your social media posts. Um, uh, we make every reasonable effort to try to split grants equitably, geographically, and culturally between tribal, rural, acequia, land grant, and oral and urban communities. And again, we encourage you to tag us in your social media. We get a lot of questions about what are eligible and ineligible expenses, and that's an excellent question. I'm glad you guys asked. So eligible expenses, things that grant funds can cover, would be services, recreational and educational services. If you have to bring contractors on board, let's say you're contracting with a guide service to get your participants out, any of those contracted services are going to be eligible.
They haven't changed it.
Grant funds can be used for materials. Maybe you need to buy bicycles or paddles or life jackets or butterfly nets or any of the materials and equipment that you might need for your programming. That's an eligible expense. Transportation and travel can be covered. We know that especially when dealing with school groups, funding transportation can be a big barrier, and so we want to reduce that. And so funds can be used to cover transportation and travel. They can be used for up to 10% of administrative costs. We understand that administration is required to facilitate these programs. It can be used for billed labor, including staff and youth interns for programming. And within reason, they can be used for miscellaneous expenses. Examples would be insurance, if you need to feed participants, anything that goes directly to support the programming or the youth who are participating. So again, examples might be insurance fees to cover program liability, meals, bus fare, equipment rentals or gear purchases, ski tickets, anything that directly supports getting the kiddos outside. Ineligible programs or expenses would be programs without significant exposure to outdoor nature-based environments. The outdoor equity fund is designed to get kids outside, and so if it's primarily inside, if it is not outdoor recreation, then we would not cover it. Traditional organized youth sports played on developed fields, some of us call those stick and ball sports. Those are not eligible for coverage under outdoor equity fund grant programs. Any infrastructure development, so we will pay for equipment and materials, but if you wanted to build a trail or a bike park or a garden or something like that, those are not coverable by the Outdoor Equity Fund. That would be a better candidate for the Trails Plus grant program, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. Out-of-state travel is also not coverable. So again, examples would be summer camps providing only organized sports opportunities. There does have to be a robust program component to grant applications as well. So we would not fund anything that just asks for equipment with no associated programming. That the materials and equipment need to be utilized by the youth being served during the grant period. Hopefully that makes sense. Again, within the grant guide, we've got a frequently asked questions section, and so I would encourage you to take a look at that. That's going to be a lot of stuff that was reviewed by during this presentation. One of the things that we really do encourage folks to do if they have not done already is sign up for our newsletter. Michelle sends out a very informative newsletter twice a month. It includes ORD news, it includes uh, programs and events statewide, it includes any job opportunities we might have to share. And so that's really going to be your primary way to find out what's going on with ORD. And just outdoor recreation throughout the state. Also, if you do social media, please follow us on Facebook and Instagram. A couple of important things for those who do choose to apply for the Outdoor Equity Fund grant. Like I said, we are using the submittable grant platform for all grant related communication. Um, if you go into your settings, we really need to check this yes, I want to receive email notifications box. Sometimes folks will set up their profile and they don't check that box, and then they wonder why they never hear from us. You have to check that box to receive news about whether or not your project is funded, to receive updates, to receive invitations to submit progress reports. So please make sure that you check that yes, I want to receive email notifications box so we can keep in touch with you. We are strongly encouraging applicants to use an updated W-9 form. The W-9 it seems to be one of the biggest bottlenecks for getting awardees funded. Sometimes they use the wrong form, sometimes there's incorrect information on it. And if we don't have a correct W-9 from you, and this is a required part of the application, but if we don't have a correct W-9 form, there will be delays in providing funding to awarded grantees. So it's very much in your best interest to make sure that you provide a correct W-9 form. And there is a link to both this instructional example, and there is a link to the suggested W-9 form on the grant application. So you have to have the name. You have to check, please check that you're a government or a tax exempt nonprofit organization. Box 4, only check other and write grantee. We do have to have your federal EIN number. That's the identifier that will help us get procurement going. We need a correct mailing address. The W-9 absolutely has to have a wet signature. And by wet signature, we mean that you have to print it out, sign it with a pen, scan it as a PDF, and upload it that way. The digital signatures will not be accepted, and I don't quite understand the methodology of how they do it, but there is a technological method that's used to determine whether it's a wet signature or an electronic signature. So please use a wet signature so that we don't have to chase you down for a correct W-9. And then part 5, you are only going to put any information in there if you want electronic payment. If you want to check, don't do anything on that. So please review this example before you submit it. Also of note, the W-9 has to be signed within 6 months of the grant application. And so if you have an old W-9 with your nonprofit that you've been using for years, you cannot use that. You have to submit an updated W-9 with a wet signature that is less than 6 months old. Also, some of you who have submitted applications in the past, you'll probably notice that we have an updated budget template. We've added drop-down menus for the funding categories to try to make that easier and more consistent. We've also added drop-down categories for the match type. We've combined we've combined the grant budget and the match into one consolidated form to try to make it easier to use. And then you'll also notice that we added a column for final reporting. So when you submit your application, you're going to complete the grant funding and projected match sections. And then if you're awarded, when you submit your final report at that 18-month mark or whenever your programming is done, we're going to ask to see how funding was actually spent and how the match was actually met. We're interested to start gathering data on comparing those two columns. We've discussed the reporting requirements. All reporting happens through Submittable. You'll receive a progress report request at the approximate halfway point. If we ask it at a request, we'll do a site visit or an update call, tell us all the awesome things that you're doing. Final report at the grant wrap up, at least one social media shout out, and providing us with any photos or videos that we can use. And if you notice, all of these photos that we have in this presentation, those all came from grantees. So it's an excellent way for us to see all of the amazing ways the grant funds are supporting getting youth outside throughout the state. There are additional grant opportunities that are available through the state of New Mexico and elsewhere. I've mentioned the Trails Plus grant. Trails Plus grant is the other Outdoor Recreation Division grant program, and that focuses on the infrastructure side of outdoor recreation. So that can be trail projects, community garden projects, the Whitewater Wave that just started, that is about to be opened in Farmington, was partially funded by Trails Plus. So kind of the way I describe it is if it involves programming or equipment, it is an outdoor equity fund program. If it involves infrastructure or things going in or on the ground, that would be a Trails Plus grant. And Michelle's going to drop information about the upcoming webinar for Trails Plus in the Q&A as well, so you can learn more about that. There are a whole bunch of other different grant programs that may be of interest to grantees. The best consolidated resource that we've found for a lot of those grants is the New Mexico Main Street page. Some examples that I would point out that might be of interest to folks here would be the Clean Beautiful grant program that focuses on community beautification. That one is run through the tourism department. There's the K-Linda grant program, and that's focused on litter abatement and illegal dump site cleanup. That's funded through NMDOT. Destination Forward is a tourism grant program. But so New Mexico has a wide variety of very cool grant programs that might be of interest to anyone who's on this call. So I'd encourage you to check that out. You can always pick up your phone and zap that QR code that'll take you there as well. And I've got notes here. So Trails Plus, the application period opens July 1st for round one, and the informational webinar is August 14th. All of that information is on the ORD website, so please go ahead and check that out at your leisure. And that is the end of my part of the presentation. Again, my name is Evan Pilling. I'm the grants coordinator for the Outdoor Recreation Division. And I mentioned those one-on-one appointments. Number one, you can scan that QR code, and that will take you to that'll take you to the sign up page. I worked very hard to learn Microsoft bookings, and I sincerely hope that it works the way that we think it will. But you should be able to sign up for either a 15 or a 30-minute slot if you have more detailed questions. If that doesn't work, you can also email me at evan.pilling@eddnm.gov, and I will send you a bookings link there. And with that, let's go into some of the Q&A.
All right, so far it looks like we just have one question, and it is about, let's see, are current grantees eligible to apply for this new round, or do they need to wait until the end of the 18 months? If not eligible, would a current grantee become eligible if the report is submitted before the end of 18 months?
Yeah. Are you looking in the Q&A or the chat?
That is in the chat, and there's
Okay.
a similar question in the Q&A about the eligibility of.
There is,
of
but
this
again,
round.
that was a lot more words than I was seeing. So let me go to the chat so I can read the question and answer properly.
Sure.
There we go. So the short version of that is entities are only able to receive Outdoor Equity Fund grant funds for once per calendar year. I'm sorry, once per fiscal year. We are working on protocols or we're working on policies and procedures to clearly establish who can apply. But no, you don't need to wait until the end of the 18-month period. We would like for projects to be completed before you apply for another round of funding. But Jillian, I guess what I would suggest is that you shoot me an email to ask that directly, and I can answer that for you.
Okay. Next question is, how does an LLC become an OEF ambassador? And Evan, if you're not comfortable taking that question, this is something that's kind of been in flux for us. Do you want me to just go ahead with it?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so there is discussion currently happening about how and if we continue the OEF Ambassador program. Our team is going to connect on that shortly and potentially have more information soon. So I would say if you are interested, I'll take down your email. Just drop your email in the chat, and I can make sure to contact you after our team connects on that. What is the state's fiscal year?
Fiscal year is July 1st to June 30th.
And I'm not seeing any other questions yet, folks. Any other questions?
I saw one just will the 1.5 million be equally divided between the two grant application periods? I did address that, but the answer is yes. Well, it's the 3 million will be equally divided between the two periods. So it's a total of 3 million for fiscal year 26, and that will be evenly or as close to evenly as possible be divided into two $1.5 million buckets for each round.
All right, somebody wants you to pull up the slide about the final report format. And they're asking if it's an online form to be filled out or if they can get a template.
No, that it is an online format. It's through Submittable. It's in the process of being updated, so we don't have an updated format to show you, but it will be. It's a relatively brief form, and that will be available through Submittable.
All right, and somebody else is asking how long after the grant window closes are decisions made?
That is another excellent question. So the current application period ends July 31st. Our goal is to complete the review process in the month of August. That's the goal that we're going to try to adhere to, but it may end up being closer to 6 weeks depending on our review committee. And so our goal would be for awardees to be notified 4 to 6 weeks after the application period closes. And then the often follow-up to that is how long does the procurement process happen? The first answer to that is, well, that depends on whether or not you submit a correct W-9 form. But our goal is to show our goal is to wrap up the procurement process in 2+ months. So for this, awardees would be likely seeing their check by the end of October at the earliest. What data do we wish to see showing the 40% low income? Let me go back to the frequently asked questions slide. This is in the grant guide. Or actually, no, maybe it's on the application. So you can use county level demographic information. You can use census data. You can use school free lunch information or Title I school information. So there's some pretty robust information. I mean, you can use direct demographic data for your, for the youth you're serving if you have that. We don't require any individualized demographic data for participants, but so the easiest way is going to be school data or county level county or municipal level demographic data. Michelle, anything to add on that?
No, I think you're good there. We do have another question I can pull up for you. Anna is asking, she said she had some technical difficulties earlier. Is it possible to submit in both grant rounds, or are you only allowed to submit in one of the two rounds?
So that's another thing that we are well, so the answer is it depends. And I'll just read what I wrote for the grant guide. It depends. An organization or entity can only receive OEF funding once per fiscal year. If you submit an application for round one and your project is not awarded, you may be eligible to reapply for round two. ORD staff will notify you whether or not your project is eligible for resubmission as is, if edits are required, or if it is ineligible based on scoring and review. Depending on staff capacity, ORD staff may be available to provide additional feedback on your application. Please do not submit multiple applications from multiple partners for the same program in an attempt to increase the odds of it being funded. In that case, submit one application for the program and include letters of support. So if you apply for funding for round one and you are funded, you will not be eligible to reapply in round two. If you are not funded, you will be notified whether you're eligible for reapplication as is. If we can give you some feedback that might help strengthen your application, or based on review, if it's just not eligible as is, we'll notify you of that.
Okay, we've got another question. What does an outdoor equity fund coalition position entail? I could probably take that if you want.
Sure.
So that is something that we are not actually operating. We are not able to run a coalition for the Outdoor Equity Fund. We have partners who are doing amazing work, who are gathering and getting people to work together for that. I can find the email and drop that in the chat. I will do that shortly. And then we have another question here. I've already submitted my application. Should I update my program start date if it falls before payout?
I can take that one. So Devin, you do not need to update your application in our system. You should just be aware that we can't make any specific guarantees about when funding would be dispersed. And like I said, at the earliest, awardees would be looking at getting funded by the end of October. And somebody's very excited about the OEF ambassador. Sorry to pick on you. We did answer that, but the OEF ambassador program is it's a somewhat latent program that is in the process of being reevaluated by ORD. So when details are available about that, they will be included in the newsletter and social media.
Okay, we've got another Q&A. Give me just a second. Although letters of support are not required, do you still accept them with applications, and does this strengthen the chance of receiving funding?
Yes.
Okay. Another one in the chat. Let me just bounce back. Oh, no. And did somebody have their hand up earlier? I've got everybody muted. So if you could just drop your question in the chat.
I don't see a hand up anymore.
Okay.
And we have a comment in the chat. Just to clarify, the coalition is not part of ORD, but an outside partner. That is correct. The Outdoor Equity Fund Coalition is a coalition of individuals and nonprofits that support the outdoor recreation division and are currently working to support ongoing consistent funding for Outdoor Equity Fund, but it is not it's not an official part of the outdoor recreation division. Thank you for that clarification.
And I'm dropping a link to some more information about that coalition into the chat.
Oh, cool.
Is a letter of support similar to a testimonial?
I can take that. That's actually not a question I've ever seen before. It made me think a little bit. It is similar, but so a testimonial might be some positive words from a past program participant. A letter of support would be a letter from a partner organization, basically saying why your program is important and why it has a positive impact to the community. So they're similar, but so for example, sometimes I do best by way of examples. I am running, my nonprofit does outdoor recreation based after school programming. A testimonial might be a brief blurb from a past program participant saying, "Hey, this program was great, and here's how it affected my life." A letter of support might be a letter from a teacher or a school principal who you might be serving saying why your program is important and how it benefits the larger community.
Y'all
Michelle,
asking some good
did that
questions.
make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
And Pam, hopefully that made sense to you. Excellent question, guys. Thank you. I'm glad to see that people are paying attention. I always get worried when they're crickets because it means we either answered all the questions or we botched it so horribly that nobody thinks it's worth asking questions.
You mentioned an 18-month period. Does that mean that programming, I think they mean that just happened between July 1 and June 30, or can programming happen after June 30th, 2026?
Yes, the second one. So the fiscal year refers to when funds are dispersed. And so, during fiscal year 26, that's when the funds are dispersed. But grantees have up to 18 months from when that contract date from when the grant agreement date is signed. So let's say your organization is awarded and your grant agreement is signed on September 1st of 2025. The 18-month clock starts ticking on that September 1st date. And I don't know his math so well, but if you count 18 months out from September 1st, 2025, that is when programming would need to be completed and final reporting need to be done.
Any more questions, guys? Dad jokes you want to drop in the chat?
Oh man.
Open it up for dad jokes.
Yeah. Cool. Well, again, just to go back to, I I definitely want to make sure that we want to make sure that we're answering questions to the best of our ability. So if you do have more detailed questions about your application, or your program, sign up for that one-on-one, and I'll answer your questions, all of your questions to the best of my ability. One final thought is if you do have tech issues with Submittable, particularly login or account issues, we can't do anything to fix those. And so if you get locked out of your Submittable account, if you have any of those issues, you do have to contact Submittable support directly. We can't unlock your account or reset your password or anything like that. We get folks asking that, and Submittable is a third-party platform that we contract with, but we don't manage accounts or anything like that. So I think with that, I will say thank you so much, everyone, for attending, and I look forward to seeing your applications and learning more about your programming. And thank you for everything that all of you do to get New Mexico's youth outside and in the wild. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Thanks all.